minor. Here's another one. It has 2 pickup notes, 1, 2, 3. Hey everyone, I thought I'd try to build on the success of my last video about the diminished scale by covering the altered scale in depth today. Let's see, first I'll just play a little bit. Let me do the bridge to Have You Met Miss Jones? I did that last time with the diminished scale, so let me try that. Now how does that song go? Another song where it might be a little unexpected would be Giant Steps, because most of the 2/5s there are 2/5-1s in major keys, and you know the altered scale sometimes associated with the minor key, but not always. So we've got. Let's see if we're going to get into it. Weird. All right. Let me think if I think of another song. I'm going to do another song in F. How about I Love You? I do too. Okay, let's get into it. So I have here a 2-page printout that, it's down there in the description. Just hit the link and this will pop right up. You don't go to a website or anything, and you can print it out or just take a look at it. First, just say what the altered scale is, and then I'm going to look into, then we need to understand the harmony behind it. So we're going to use some altered dominant chords. Those are like 7th chords, C 7th. That'll have a flat 9 or a sharp 9 or a sharp 11 or a flat 13 or a flat 5, which is the same as the sharp 11. So first, let's just take a look at the scale. I've written it out 3 different ways. Thinking about a C7 with altered tensions, we got a flat 9, a sharp 9. That's just the 3rd. We get a sharp 11, a flat 13. That's just the dominant 7th or the flat 7. So it looks like this. You might recognize this scale as being D flat melodic minor or C sharp melodic minor, and it's probably better written as C sharp melodic minor, but right, it's the same scale there, right? And if you want to think of it that way, if you're on C, just think a half step higher and play the melodic minor scale. If you wanted F altered scale, you just think F sharp minor, right? With the major portion up here in the top, a major 6, a major 7th for the F sharp scale, and you're playing F dominant, right? Okay, and I looked this up on Wikipedia too. I wanted to be prepared today, and somebody looks at this scale as a B major scale, but the B is raised to a C. See, B is raised to a C. So same notes now, except for the B. See? Now, I've never thought of it like that, and just like, there's more than one way to get the answer to a mathematical equation. There's more than one way to look at these scales and to think of them. So whichever way works best for you, go for it. All right, let's get into the harmony now. So we're basically talking about a dominant seventh chord. We're going to leave the 5 out because in the altered scale, we've got notes on either side of the fifth, so we're going to leave that out in most of our chords. We can add a flat 9, a sharp 9, a sharp 11, and a flat 13. Those are the 4 altered tensions. They're altered because it's not a regular 9 or a regular 11 or an unaltered, just another way of saying it, an unaltered 13. The 13 is altered. It's moved down. The 11th is altered. It's raised. And the 9th can go either way or both. All right, so some nice voicings here. Well, if you're improvising, these box voicings work well. And if you don't know what I'm talking about box voicings, I'll try to remember to link to it, but if you look in my playlist for rootless voicings, these are just certain shapes of rootless voicings that can function many different ways. But I'm just thinking of it as this one particular chord, a C dominant seventh, and it's got a sharp 9, so that's kind of like the classic sound, and the 4-note version has the flat 13 in it there. Okay? And where's this chord going? It's going to either F major or F minor. It could go either way, really. It's more commonly associated with going to a minor chord in what you call a minor 2-5-1, but it certainly does not have to be limited to that. So we've got this box voicing, and I kind of drew it 2 different ways because you can think of this, this is another function, as a G flat 13 or F sharp 13. So depending on which way you're thinking of it, there's kind of like no real good way to write it. I think the most common version is that one with the flats there. And then we can take the inversion of that, and this would be box 2, same exact notes, and I wrote it 2 different ways. Did I get it right? Yes, I did. Okay, good, right. Instead of the sharp 9 there, you could have the flat 9 and do it this way, and the inversion of that is here. Now, that's not an official box voicing, but, it's like a B flat minor 7 flat 5, that chord. And by the way, this altered scale would work over the B flat minor 7 flat 5 chord, but you would call it something else. You would call it the Locrian sharp 2. But, we're just talking about the altered scale today, so that's what it is. Okay, and how would you use this in like some 2-5-1s? You could use that box voicing as a right-hand voicing, and then go to F major, G minor, C altered, and F major. Now you could do you could go to F minor, like that, or you could start with a minor 7 flat 5, maybe something like this. That's G minor 7 flat 5, and then the altered. And let's go to a minor this time, minor 6 chord. Like if you're a sax player or you're just soloing and you hear somebody playing chords and they play a 2 chord, but it's a minor 7 flat 5, you kind of expect an altered chord next, and you expect it to go to a minor. But like I say, it really doesn't have to be used that way. You can use it just a plain old G minor 7, C altered, and go to F major. Sounds great, happens all the time. I do also on the second page here have some good 2-handed voicings. I don't know why I wrote that as an F flat there. Maybe just because it looks more like a triad that way. And that's a good way to think of it if you're looking for a C altered there with the flat 13 on top. Just think of a minor triad, a half step above the root. All right, minor triad, and there it is. And here's I wrote that as a D sharp, but probably shouldn't be, because it's a sharp 9. But, E flat is typically the way that would be written. Don't ask me why. All right, and here, and we're going to get into this too, is these triad pairs. This is a G-flat triad and an A-flat triad, and both of them make nice chord voicings. Maybe a smaller one down here would be like that. That's using, instead of this box voicing, it's using box 2 here. And here's a really cool one. All right. This is a Keith Jarrett voicing, and I think that's right. Let me just check it once. Yeah, it's like a minor 7th chord. Yeah, a minor 3rd above the root. So a minor 7th chord, a minor 3rd above the root. Yeah, that's it. I heard him use this in he used it right here. So anyway, that was an F dominant, not a C dominant. Okay, let's get into the riffs that you can use. I hate that word, riffs. You're improvising. Anything goes, but if you keep it somewhat organized, you're better off. I took some out of this book. I don't have the book. I'll put a picture of it up there. And these, I think these are, were taken from like real jazz solos or something. So anyway, we're going to be thinking in the key of F because that's our 1 chord. And we're going to start with a 2 chord as G minor 7 flat 5. Our dominant chord will be C, so we can use the altered scale we've been talking about. All right, so we're going to start here. Now, that's actually called Locrian sharp 2. It is actually an altered scale of A. It's A. But we're using as G minor 7 flat 5. And then here's our C to F minor. And for the C, I could have done that. I could have used a box voicing like that for F minor. Here's another one. It has 2 pickup notes. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, another one now with some pickup notes. 1, 2, 3. All right, very nice. I've used this scale a lot, leaving out one of the notes. And the note that I leave out is the tritone, of all things. So that's the 6-note scale. There's some really cool, what I call 1-4-5 patterns. Now, it's not 1-4-5 in C. It's just like finger patterns like this. 1-4-5, 1, because it's a 4th and a 5th above that note. And then you take, you can do it on... you can do it on that note too, right? Because those notes are all in the altered scale. You can do it this way and this one. All right, now looking at this one for a second, you see the top 2 notes up here are the other 2 places where you can start that 1-4-5. So you can, you can go, you can use all 3 of them, or you can just, do something like this. Yeah, why not right up there? All right, let me use a different one. And let me go to a minor key this time. Or minor 6 might be better. Who's a guy who uses that a lot? What's that fella's name now? I can't think, but I'll put it up there. Now, some great triad pairs. People talk about triad pairs all the time, and I talked about them a little bit with the chords. We could use a A flat chord over a C seventh structure. You know, there's no 5 there. So you can have a riff that uses this triad and this triad. So let me do it in a 2-5-1. So I went, I think I had the G flat one, then I had the A flat in a different inversion, then I went to the G flat again and ended on the 5th of F. All right. In fact, if you look at the altered scale and do all the triads, you have a diminished triad first, and then you have a minor triad, another minor triad, an augmented triad, the 2 major triads right here, those are the ones I was just talking about, and then you have a diminished, and the first one here is a diminished also. So you have 2 diminished triads, you know, and you could possibly, I didn't think about this earlier, but you could possibly use that as a solo. Nah. Something like that, maybe. All right, I'd have to work on that one myself. But let's try the minor triads. And here I don't think I've ever really thought of it this way too much, but let's see if it works. Works damn well. Yeah, see, I went E flat and then C sharp there, or D flat if you want to call it that. So these are just some ways to kind of construct a line. If you're just using that scale, lots of things will work. You know, just using the scale, you know, like that, works great. And, you know, you can put little passing tones in. You've got, this is a very interesting scale because it starts with what looks like a diminished scale and then kind of turns into the whole tone scale here. And that's why it's sometimes called the diminished whole tone scale. But you know, there's plenty of places you could put in a passing tone, right, like that. Put 2 of them in that time. And maybe right in there would be a nice place too. Yeah. So, fair. Okay. Little enclosure going on there. Another kind of good way of thinking of triad pairs, and I don't think I've heard anybody else talk about this, except for my former jazz teacher, Mr. Ted Howe. The 2 minor pairs here, you know, D flat and E flat, you could think of those as 2 chords going to the 5 chord, you see, 2-5. If it was in B, that would be a 2-5. And also the E flat minor and the A flat major. 2-5 there. So, you know, you could come up with something like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And let's do the other one. You know, they've got one note in common, so that it doesn't work quite as well as using like 2 minor pairs or 2 major pairs. But, you know, I think, let's see. Yeah, like the E flat and the A flat, you could use E flat minor 7th and A flat dominant 7th, right? Because that's all in that C altered scale. I don't know if that would work out that great, but you know, it's worth a try anyway. Now, that one's not in, so you could use a minor 6 here, and that reminds me of something else I need to talk about. Yeah, so using the minor 6th and then the 7th. All right, there you go. You can't forget to talk about this, Art Tatum. So Art Tatum, you know, knew the altered scale and knew altered dominant chords, but I don't think he really thought about them that way because I don't think they ever used that term back in those days. But, you know, from looking at a lot of his riffs, I see that he does some 2-fingered riffs, and these are really, really fun to do. Let's see, how would I do it? Yeah. then what is it? No. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm playing the minor 6 chord, a half step above C. And you can, on minor 6 chords, a lot of them, not every single key, I think, but there's a lot of kind of convenient patterns where you can do a 2-finger riff like that. And I think maybe Art sometimes used the 2nd finger or might alternate. I'm not really sure. For me, that one feels right. Just thinking about maybe an F minor 6 on like an E chord. Going to A minor, right? So E altered. I'm thinking up a minor half step to a minor 6, and then I'm doing a 2-finger run. To A minor. So that's an easier 2-finger run to do if you would like to do one. All right, is there anything else on this sheet I need to cover? There's a song, and it's, let's see, George Duke arranged it, and Marilyn Scott sang it, and it's called The Last Day. And I'm not going to play the song or anything. Yeah, uses this chord, right? Kind of like as a B altered chord. It took me like, I don't know, a good 10 minutes to figure out that chord. And so I've transposed it into the key of C here to do. And I also, on my arrangement, if you want to look at one of my old videos about round midnight, I use this, this kind of progression here. So this is what it is. We're going to deal with a C altered chord, and I'm going to start with this triad, right? That's that minor triad, that's a half step above, and then this minor triad. And at the same time, I'm going to add, the 2 major triads along with it. So I've got the 2 minor triads and the 2 major triads all over like a C7th, and it kind of comes out like this. To an F minor or an F minor 6. So let's listen to it again. Set it up with the 2 chord first. Yeah, that was just my idea. Well, it wasn't really my idea. I think it was George Duke's idea. But he just used that one pair like that, and then went to an altered chord, something like, and then he played like this. Now you could actually think of that as some other chord moving to a C altered, but it's really got C altered notes in it, so. Something like that. And of course, we've got to cover the blues. So let's see. I'll do 2 blues. I'll do a blues in C and a blues in F, and we'll be able to use the C altered scale in both of them. So first, the blues in C. All right, let me do that blues in C again. Let's do a blues in F. So I used it in a similar way there. And now we're back to F. All right, now here's our 2-5-1. Now, how did I learn the altered scale and get good at it? I did not really think about the minor melodic ascending. I just learned it as the altered scale, and I would practice it something like this. All right. You know, if you know the diminished scales that fit over the dominant 7th chord, it starts like that, even like that, and then you just follow it out with whole steps. All right? But you don't really have time to think about that stuff when you're improvising. That's why you just got to get comfortable with it. I'll do them nice and slow. Here's my favorite. Nice easy one there. Another kind of cool one right here. And see, notice that I knew to start on my 2nd finger, so my fingering would work out there. Because I've done practiced this stuff before. Of course, you could do 2 octaves. And you know, with any of these kind of scales, practicing little patterns like that, or the triads. Yeah, I could practice that one. You know, little patterns like that. You know, it stimulates your brain more than anything else, rather than coming up with a great line. But you know, when you're improvising, and if you know the notes really well, you can just kind of think about little shapes. Oh, I think I'll bounce up here, and then I'll bounce down there, and then I'll kind of buzz around in this little area, and then I'll take a wild leap with one of these, like that. And of course, you know, just using like stuff like the box voicings, right? You hear this a lot. That's a good usage of the altered chord there too. All right, a little scattered, but a lot of ideas for you to work on, and thanks for tuning in as always. And Tony Winston for Jazz Piano College, signing off. One thing I kind of forgot to mention is all this stuff that I've been talking about with the altered scale, sometimes called the diminished whole-tone scale, is perfectly applicable to the Lydian dominant scale. And you know, you find this a tritone away, F sharp. If I use this same, you know, kind of altered dominant voicing as an F sharp voicing, it's no longer altered, right? Because our 13 is unaltered and our 9 is unaltered. We've got no altered tensions in there. And the Lydian dominant scale is exactly like the altered scale, just starting a tritone away. Now, that doesn't mean you can just say, well, I know the altered scale, so therefore I know the Lydian dominant scale. No, you should take it through the cycle, and you know, that's the Lydian part, that's the dominant part. I always find if you're playing a particular chord, like C7 or F sharp 7, it's good to think of a scale that starts on that note, because if you start thinking about a scale that starts on a different note, pretty soon you're trying to juggle 2, you know, tonalities in your mind at once, and you know, maybe you can do it. I can't. All right, another thing I kind of forgot, and that is, you know, in typical jazz progressions, and I'm talking about things like rhythm changes, blues changes, where is the altered scale most likely to occur? Let's take like Donna Lee. Like there on the 6th chord, you know, because it has so many of the A flat notes in it, you see? All these notes are in A flat, right? So, the A isn't, but, right? So it tends to work on a 6th chord. So, now, on the 2, when it's like a, what do you call this, a subdominant, right? It's like on the 2 chord, not A flat, but B flat 7th. That's usually where it doesn't work. you know, you just don't hear it that way. Let me just improvise. It just doesn't sound quite right. You know, the Lydian dominant sounds better as a B flat. And of course, like I just said a minute ago, if you're thinking a tritone away, you could use E altered because it's the same notes. Right? However, you know, if you're improvising and you're on your 13th chorus or something, and you know you want to get a little further away or get a little bit more outside, or you know have a sound that disturbs the listeners a little bit. Not disturbs, but you know, I mean, after a while, if you keep using the same old scales, it's going to start sounding a lot the same. So if you put the dominant scale, if you put the altered scale in a spot where you might not expect it, like on a subdominant 2 chord, you know, it might sound pretty good. It definitely would work in the blues if you're in C. And let me just show you the D altered scale. That's it, and I'm going to use that when I get to D, and I'm in the key of C. Well, let me do that again. So now here's D. Probably not the best note to really end on. It was pretty hip sounding, but yeah, I don't like to be all that hip. But here, you know, once again, a 2/5 with subdominant. Yeah, that's a little better. Another place where you typically wouldn't expect it would be on the flat 7 dominant chord, because you know you got a lot of progressions that go, and they go to the minor 4. Going from the B flat back to the C, you just don't expect B flat altered to go back to C. It could, and you know, like I say, if you're trying to, bend the ear of your listener a little bit, you know, you could try the altered scale in one of those kind of positions, but generally not. Another kind of a blues thing. A common progression is to go up to the minor, dominant, and then F sharp, like. Right? So as you're doing that, see, you can be thinking of it as F sharp going to F, but C altered is just as good. Same thing. All right. I screwed it up. Now see there, I did A altered because that's the 6th chord, and then I went to D, and it was unaltered, but I could have made it altered. Yeah, in fact, when you're doing 1, 3, 6, 2, 5s, it's kind of fun to just play around with which ones are altered, which ones are unaltered. And one chord I really didn't cover is this chord. You know, it's got an altered tension here, but the 13 is not. The diminished scale fits this chord the best, really. You can certainly use the altered scale over any kind of dominant chord. Well, just think how often you have like an accompanist, either guitar or piano, who's comping, and they might play a C this way, you know, where it's got an unaltered interval, but the soloist, the saxophone player, doesn't know that that's what's coming, and he plays the altered scale, and you know, you have this sound with that, and you've got a clash there, but they're both going in the same direction. They're both going towards an F minor or an F major, and they both will arrive there at roughly the same time, so it works. You know, it does, and you know, sometimes just to make your playing a little bit more hip, you know, you can do like an altered type of voicing and then do the diminished scale. You know, it's got notes that really kind of clash with the altered sound, but it still works, kind of, you know. And that's what jazz is all about. It's kind of like the song that you're jazzing up, you know, you're taking a standard and you're kind of playing it right. But anyway, enough kidding around. Enjoy the altered scale, folks. Thank you so much. It was a long video, I know, but I appreciate you watching it, and I will see you again soon.